And welcome to Around the Ozark Spotlight. Each week, we uncover the stories behind the people who live and work here in Southwest Missouri. Those individuals with entrepreneurial spirit who work to develop the lives of others or even put pen to paper to write books about the stories and history of the Ozarks and its people. I'm your host, Scott Meier. Today, we're exploring the world of baseball and spring, and we're doing it with Springfield Cardinals GM Dan Reiter. Dan, welcome.
Hey Scott, how are you doing?
They talk about the groundhog in Pennsylvania. Not that you're a groundhog, Dan, but I think once we have you on the program, that means spring's right around the corner.
Well, I'm glad I can bring joy to somebody then. So it doesn't happen all the time.
Well, I'm sure you bring joy to plenty of people. Now, I know a couple of weeks ago you had a job fair. How'd that go?
Went great. I think that's something that we've always been very fortunate that people are excited to be here, and we don't take that for granted. It doesn't matter if it's a fan, someone working, but we feel very blessed to be supported by our community, and so the turnout was fantastic.
Well, you're going to get a chance to talk about what kind of a deal maker, not deal breaker, it was to have the city step up and buy the ballpark. But we are how far away from opening day?
Too close. There's just so much work that happens between now and our home opener is on Tuesday, April 9th. And there's just so many things that are happening and different than any other year. And a lot of it does tie into that city portion of it is that with the city buying the stadium, we now have a
Mhm.
pathway to reach compliance with Major League Baseball standards. So there's a lot of moving projects right now.
Well, it sounds like it, and one of the most important things is you got your parking back, right?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we knew that the parking affected us. I don't think we realized how much. And I think that, some people did it and just they walked in angry because of what they paid, and some people just didn't come.
Mhm.
But getting the city as a part of the agreement, being able to get that lot and for us to be able to charge a reasonable amount, it made a world of difference for our fans.
Let me put you on the spot for a moment. When we talk about, in this case, minor league baseball, but baseball in general, what kind of money do the Cardinals, Springfield Cardinals, bring to Springfield each year? How much? What's the economic impact of the Cardinals?
It's funny that you asked that because I think is when the city did purchase us, that became one of the questions is that they wanted to start looking into what is the economic impact. So I think as a city, they're wanting to actually try to figure that number out.
Mhm.
But you start looking at it, and without getting into the exact numbers, is that there's about 30 full-time people here. There's about 300 that are part-time. You start generating the tax revenue from people coming to all of our games, uh, and then even the future. I think one of our biggest things that we're going to have coming up for 2024 is I think we're going to be able to host our first ever standalone concert. And I think the
Really?
excitement of being able to grow as a community is going to impact it even more. Uh, and that's where I think yes, there's an economic impact, but I love where our community is at right now, and I love that our city council is talking about quality of place, because metrics are important. And I trust me, in my job, I have a lot of metrics I have to hit with our ownership group. And so I don't want to take away from metrics, but I think when you start looking at especially Gen Z and younger millennials, it's about how community makes you feel. And when they go and they
Mhm.
visit a city, it needs to feel like it's vibrant. It needs to feel that it's a lot of fun. And I think when they've put that focus on quality of place, I think it's just kind of showing that Springfield wants to focus on making this a great city to live in, to work in, to play in,
Mhm.
because ultimately, we need to be in the market as a community to get young people wanting to stay here, move here, and create their families here. And I think the ballpark, yes, there's a positive economic impact, but even more so, I think it's about trying to make our city vibrant as a quality of place.
Did we work? Does the ballpark work hand in hand with the CVB at all? Are you involved with them? Is there any of the funds the CVB helps raise go towards what your efforts are?
Yeah, I was on the board for the CVB for 6 years. Another
Mhm.
one of our staff is on the board right now. As kind of a local destination, that's kind of our involvement with there. And they want to market everybody, and they have to pick and choose which ones are bringing people into our market, because ultimately that's
Mhm.
what the CVB wants to do. The Conventions Bureau, Visitors Bureau, they want people coming to Springfield is instead of leaving it. And really when we work with them, I think they're one of the best rising tide organizations that we've got. We contribute to a fund that they do, and the name escapes me right now. But I've told them, like, I'll advocate to any other business to put money into the CVB because you're investing in the rising tide. Um, yes, I think they promote us some, and that's great, but that's not really why, as a company, we choose to participate. I choose to participate at the CVB because they're looking out for the greater good of all of Springfield.
Mhm.
And as a destination, yes, they do market us. So I don't want to act like they don't, but that's our participation. Even if they didn't do a thing to market the Springfield Cardinals for a year, we would still contribute because I do think that's a part of us. The Springfield Cardinals need to be committed to the community, not just when we sell a baseball ticket. And I think the CVB does a really great job of trying to balance a lot of people in that same realm.
Dan Reiter, my guest that you're hearing and seeing on Around the Ozark Spotlight today. Dan, the general manager of the Springfield Cardinals AA baseball team. Dan, last time we spoke, you said there were a lot of things going on in minor league baseball as it affected parks, a lot of things that you needed to do to upgrade the park and change the park. How are we coming on that, and what does that timeline look like?
Yeah. So what I'm referring there is the PDL. So the PDL is kind of the agreement that Major League Baseball had with all the minor league teams. And
Hmm.
essentially it said every single stadium is going to have a set of requirements that you have to hit. Not recommended. It's like you have to hit it. And if not, you can then lose your license and they could move your team to another city. So they're taking it very seriously. Um, they've been giving out the last couple of years, you could apply for an extension, which we had received. This is the first year that it is a hard line. And really think of it as golf, that a low score is better.
Hmm.
And we started out at about 113 points, where we had to get to 30 last year, and then this
Wow.
year at 20. And we're going to be below that threshold. But, and really the reason why, when we talk about that, is it's player health and player safety. The biggest one that people saw immediately last year was the LED lights. Is that our lighting score was a failing score, which, when you talk about the whole points thing, there's
Hmm.
certain pieces that even if you had below the number of points, but you failed those topics, you automatically failed. And lighting's one of them. And you think about it, and none of us want a ball that's hit 105 miles off the bat coming back to us when we can't see it. And
Sure.
so that's why the lights were so important. But then this year, you know, this year we're spending about over $500,000 on the visiting clubhouse because we didn't have the right amounts of square footage. There was no area for people, for the guys to eat in. There were no female coaches' locker rooms.
Hmm.
So we're making all of those changes and really having to change the footprint. In addition to stuff like non-slid surfaces and dugouts. So we're changing around the playing lights, the playing field, the dugouts, the clubhouses. Essentially, if it involves the players, we have to make sure that it's up to that Major League Baseball standard. And um, you know, between the city of Springfield and our staff that's working on it on a day-to-day basis, it's going to take a lot of work, but we're going to be below that 20-point threshold for opening day. And that's where it actually gets tougher, though, is by next opening day, I've got to be at below 10. And so, we did all the big projects we could, but then those last couple points to get us from 20 to 10, those start, if I had hair, I would lose it, is probably the way to say it, because there's going to be a lot of hard decisions on those last 10 points.
Now, doesn't the field typically win the ballpark of the year award in the Texas League, or at
We
least
we did
consistently it had,
We
right?
did, man. We had one of the best runs in minor league baseball history,
Sure.
until the Wichita Wind Surge built a brand new state of the art facility.
Yeah.
But I will say it's pretty awesome is that our grounds guys, they just got back from a conference, and they had like an independent group look at all of these different metrics for fields. And when you take into account MLB, minor league baseball, college level fields, um,
Hmm.
the Springfield Cardinals were one of the top three. And now, again, the crazy part, I just mentioned Wichita, they were also in the top three. So you think of all of the professional baseball fields, and we scored as one of the top three fields in the country. And it's just kind of funny that the other one is the one that's won the last couple of field of the years in our league. But I think that just goes to show you how good we have it, is that we
Hmm.
outscored. I think there was one college baseball team that was also in the top three. But our field is absolutely stunning. but it also doesn't happen by accident. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it, especially when we share it with Missouri State University. We do get more wear and tear because they're out there practicing. Even lately, when it's been warm weather, they've gotten some scrimmages in, so they're very happy they got on the field before their opening day.
Sure.
But again, you get their practices, their games, plus all of our games, and we do have a high usage field. And I think our grounds crew deserves every bit of credit they can get on how they try to maintain it.
I can't think of anything more exciting than this time of the year to be able to walk out to the ballpark and either, if you're standing back or even down on the field itself, just to see the green in a world of brown. And I'm
Yeah,
sure the field already probably looks like it's ready for the season.
we actually put on warming tarps. And so you put on these kind of like field blankets that makes the ground
Hmm.
feel like it's 20 degrees warmer to kind of spur that growth. But the other day we took them off, and our grounds guys, they cut it. And I walked out on the field, and just the smell of fresh cut grass was just heavenly. And I was walking out with Scott Bales on our staff, and both of us were just like, oh, that's amazing. And again, you get more used to it as the year goes by, but that first cut, and especially when we weren't expecting it, it felt like baseball was coming.
Dan Reiter, my guest, Dan, the general manager of the Springfield Cardinals, which we are truly blessed to have. What are we looking at for a team this year? I know you don't get totally involved in the team side of it. You're more really with the stadium and the employees. But what do you know of the team that's coming this year, and what can we look to expect for maybe some players that will find their way to the big club?
I should have thought ahead that you were going to ask me that question, but I didn't. I'll be honest. And I think this is one of the interesting parts about minor league baseball is that you can take a player that you expect to have, and he has
Hmm.
an amazing spring training, and then he's in AAA. And even the last few years, there's a new collective bargaining agreement, and there's really some um, benefits to moving players up even faster than they used to be. And so the last two
Sure.
years here, the baseball side has been just unbelievably awesome. Right now, the guy we had a couple years ago, Mason Wynn, they just ranked him as the top rated arm in minor league baseball.
Hmm.
Jordan Walker, he was an amazing rookie class. He's one of the top 5 rookies last year. Last year we also had Tink Hence, that was the Cardinals' top pitching prospect. In the middle of the year, we traded for a guy named Thomas Sajasi, who ended up being the league player of the year. So, I mean, the baseball itself, the last 2 years here, has been as good as I remember it. Um, but I haven't quite flipped the page to know who's coming next.
Sure.
And what I do know is that there were some pitchers last year that were in kind of some of the single A clubs that were some
Hmm.
fantastic hitting. So I'm expecting to see a couple good starting pitchers here. Uh, and I think that that's really fun, especially when you start seeing them move up, move quickly, and get to the big leagues. But this year is going to be kind of for us. It's going to be a big celebration of 20 years. The Springfield Cardinals, we came to town in 2005, and so this is the 20th season of it. And I
Hmm.
think that really resonates for a lot of people because we can remember when it came. Even myself, I was here with the team since day one. They were going to hire 5 account executives, and I was number 6. So I always joke I was the throw-in hire the very first year.
Sure.
But we want to pause, and we want to talk about some of the great players we've had in the past. We want to make sure that as a community, it's being excited for where we've been, but also excited about where we're going to go. So I think you'll see a lot of marketing for us around this being our 20th year.
You get the challenge every year of bringing advertisers into the game inside the stadium and around the stadium, if you will. Has it been a good sales season this year? Are you feeling pretty good about what opening day is going to look like and sound like and feel like?
Yeah, it has been. And all of this stems, I'm going to go back to last year when the city announced they were going to buy the stadium. And then it officially happened on April 1st. Parking
Mhm.
prices dropped, and it reinvigorated our community. And yes, we did some stuff, I'll say on the product side to make it better for fans. Um, but really, I think a lot of that enthusiasm with our partners stems from the city and the fact that the dark cloud of what's going to happen, would they maybe even leave? You know, Last year it
Mhm.
was a 15-year lease extension, and I think that's pretty amazing to think that Double A Cardinals baseball is going to be in Springfield for another 14 years now. And I
Sure.
think that that's really helped create some dialogue with some companies who had never been partners with us. but also some people who kind of went away and they stopped and realized like they're so important to our community. Why are we not doing this? And I think that it's definitely a shift where sometimes you feel like, when you're in sales, you're trying to twist people's arms and convince them why you're good. It's pretty awesome when they start looking at it thinking, why aren't we doing this? And I think those conversations have been really great. And I'll give a lot of credit. Our sales staff, none of us try to oversell. We want to find the right mix for people. We want to make sure they're happy. And Scott, you and I have known this, we've known each other for a long time now. Everything that we try to do is to create a long-term partnership, not a short-term gain. And I think that that's paid off with the partners that have supported us every single year, but also in the new ones that we're still bringing in. So in a very long answer, yes, it's been a very good sales off season. But I also want to make sure I give a lot of credit to just the enthusiasm around the city of Springfield buying the stadium.
My guest, Dan Reiter, the general manager of the Springfield Cardinals AA Baseball Club. We'll be back in a moment with more on Around the Ozarks Spotlight. I'm your host, Scott Meier, back right after these messages.
Hey, everybody, it's Ethan and Sarah Forhetz from your favorite podcast, Around the Ozarks in 5. I'm sure you've been wondering, how can I get even more amazing stories, events, and witty banter to start my day?
Well, look no further. Here we are. Sign up for our daily newsletter. You'll have what's going on around the Ozarks right at your fingertips each weekday morning.
Yeah, just go to aroundtheozarks.com, click on the newsletter tab to sign up.
Thanks for listening to Around the Ozarks in 5. We hope to see you in your inbox soon.
Welcome back to the second half of today's Around the Ozarks Spotlight. I'm your host, Scott Meier. With me, Dan Reiter, the general manager. Now I can almost say longtime general manager with the Springfield Cardinals right here in Springfield. Dan, you've been in that position how long now?
I think I'll hit 7 years this summer. So I think 7 years this summer. Actually, no,
it's crazy how fast. You can almost measure it by the number of children you have.
Pretty close. I mean, I've got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And even last year, that was something that, it really hit home for me was that lease extension meant that my youngest son, the only stadium he's going to know from his childhood is Hammons Field. And I think that to me, that really resonated when you think of the age of maybe some kids, that, it's going to be a part of the community. It's going to be a part of his growing up. And for me, I'm more proud of being a dad and a husband than anything else. I mean, I could spend the next, however long you'll let me talking about that side of it. But I will keep it really short and say last year I did get to coach 2 youth baseball teams, 1 coach pitch and 1 t-ball. And it was fantastic. I loved every minute of it.
Well, you'll get more chances of that as time goes on because most dads and moms are so busy. A lot of them never put the time into it and don't get the chance that you're going to have to enjoy your kids' play as well as their friends. It's just it's really a cool thing. You mentioned in the first half of the show that you're bringing a concert to the stadium. What's that all about?
Very, very close. We've I'm hoping, maybe in the next month we'll be able to announce it. I think both sides are agreeing on principle. But one of the initiatives, one of the initiatives that we've got with the stadium is that we want to activate it for the community more than just baseball games. And I think that was very clear in the negotiations with the city. I think it was very upfront that, that as a community, one of those quality of places, it's not just concerts, but it's outdoor concerts. And obviously I think what some of the other things have done, I love that Thunder Ridge, I love that they're bringing outdoor concerts, but it's also not the same as bringing one in downtown Springfield. And even the great things that Great Southern Bank Arena is doing is that's still indoor versus outdoor, and ultimately the more fun different ways that you can enjoy music, the better. And we're going to hopefully be able to find a niche of having 1 to 2 major outdoor concerts a year. And the first one is going to be kind of a proof of concept. And I think when it gets released, I think that you'll have a lot of people like some head nods, like that's pretty cool. And again, my hope is that within a month we'll be able to announce that. And we can prove to this community that, we're ready to rock and roll. Let's do this. And I think
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You got a music background. I'm curious what you got to say.
Well, it's years ago, probably a good decade ago now. I was involved a little bit with another baseball club called the Loons up in Midland, Michigan, and they are I don't know what's beyond AAA, AA, but they're the next one, whatever
Yeah,
that is, and they're
called Low A.
associated with the Dodgers. And when they built their stadium, which for a community that size, it's a much smaller community than we have here. Beautiful stadium, beautiful little stadium, but they put in center field all the electronics for concerts. And so right from the onset, when they built that stadium, they had that in mind. Is that where the concerts will be, Dan? Will they be in center field, or are they going to be somewhere in the infield, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, we got to figure it all out, and that's the part where I'm trying to surround myself with some people who have done that. I'm not afraid to ask
Mhm.
questions, admit that I don't know what I don't know. Right now, it looks like where we would put the stage for a concert this size. I think the size of the concert is going to determine this. Um,
Sure.
but I think we're going to try to put it right behind the second base dirt,
Hmm.
either right behind second base or right behind the shortstop area. And because what we want to do is give the people in the stands as good a viewing as possible. When we get to some other concert sizes, there's definitely a threshold. If you're trying to host 6,000 people and 9,000 people, they're very different. If we want to get to where we're hosting 9,000 people, then we're going to have to push that out to center field, closer to the outfield wall. But for our
Sure.
first one, I think we want to make it a little more intimate so that the stage can be there. And then work on, having floor seats that are on the infield dirt, and you have VIP tables. And we're working through all of that right now, which is, again, it's a brand new language for me. But I also know I think it's a future of what we're going to do. And I think the last few years, our staff has done a great job of trying to tiptoe into it.
Hmm.
Our Christmas event has grown significantly. Our Halloween event has grown significantly. We've been trying to work. Last year was our new all-time high for trying to work with special events in the stadium, but small special events and a large scale concert are two different animals.
Hmm.
And so I think this is our next very, very natural progression.
Well, it's exciting. I mean, it can be a lot of fun. The one thing we don't have in town here is an amphitheater. So the ballpark almost gives you an amphitheater.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's our hope. And I think that's the city of Springfield's hope. And
Right.
just the more dates that we can activate this stadium, the better it is for everybody. And I don't hide it. Does it mean we can hopefully make some more money? Yeah, I'd love to make more money, hire more staff, and keep growing. But the fact of the matter is, when our stadium's full, it's good for the community. It's good for the businesses around it. It's good for
Mhm.
tourism. When our stadium is full, everyone is winning.
Now, we still live in a pre-pandemic and a post-pandemic world, but there were a lot of changes through the pandemic at the stadium for the fans, how the fans are treated, what things have changed. Anything new coming into this new season? It's still cashless.
Still cashless, and that's been something that, even I was just at a conference, there's teams that didn't go cashless that wish they would have,
Hmm.
because you start seeing the metrics. And you know when you're standing, the longer you stand in line, the less you're watching the game. And for us, when you start seeing the difference in transaction time of people using cards, it means it gets them back to their seats faster. So when you start looking at the number side of it, the cashless has been awesome so that people don't wait as long. And even last year we added, grab and goes. We call ours a hit and run, if you're a nice little
Hmm.
baseball term there. But those have been another way to really change the selection.
Uh-huh.
And then we're also, from my opinion, as we talk about, wanting to be such a fabric community, we're going to have a local bar, and that's something we've never really featured before. Is here's where to go and be able to get some local beers, and I think
Hmm.
that that's going to be a really great addition. Because I know myself, I find myself when I go visit a stadium, that's, hey, what local beer do you have? It doesn't mean I don't go to my standards for beers two,
Sure.
3, and beyond. I don't need to talk about how many beyonds, but I still think it's a neat part when people are visiting for us to be able to feature local beers. And I think that's one of those things that it's getting a pulse on what's going on and trying to make sure that we're able to be that for more people. So I'm really
Oh,
excited about
sure.
that one. I think that's a big one for us, and it's going to be a big one for the fan experience.
I think in the summers, my wife and I have a little place up in northern Michigan, so we spend a lot of time up there. And there we get a chance to enjoy the Traverse City Pit Spitters. And the Pit Spitters actually have craft beer night. And just like you're talking about here, I think every Thursday night is they have craft beers for every game, but craft beer special prices on Thursday night. And it's a great way to enjoy, like you say, the local breweries. And yeah, sometimes you don't always want to throw money at the big owner, even though the owner is connected to your business. But at the end of the day, it's kind of fun to celebrate some of the craft beers as well.
Well, and in general, we try to be a melting pot, and we want to be an area where everyone can get along. And I think we've done a very good job of that historically, where people in the same industry can both be partners of ours. And we just try to make sure that they each feel like they own something, that we don't stack signs on top of each other. And again, to me, this goes back to wanting to be rising tide, is that the more people we can get that are happy for different reasons, that every one of our vendors, every one of our partners gets a benefit. And sometimes what might seem like a short-term loss can lead to a long-term gain. And that's kind of what we're really trying to bet on. And that's also why we've introduced programs last couple of years. We did start Thirsty Thursday, where there's drink specials on every Thursday game. But then we also call what we do Happy Half Hour. And the first 30 minutes that the gates are open, there's a drink special. And it's been great, because when I talk about lines, is that when you start training some people to come in and to do that the first 30 minutes, that means that there's less of a rush right when the first pitch happens. And so the more I can space out the lines, the better experience that everyone has. And we really saw that last year, was that we were doing a lot of things to pace out the lines, which made the average wait time shorter. So, and I'm really big on getting the fan experience by not having them stand in line for food and beverage.
Is there any chance that vendors will be cashless as well, that you can bring vendors back and for them to be able to do business in the crowd?
Yeah, every year we're looking at that. And really the grab and goes have just changed the way that people are consuming it, especially in a minor league park. Big league park, it's different, because where your seat is to where a concession stand could be a pretty healthy hike. But in a minor league stadium now, they don't have to wait for the vendor to come to them. They can pop up, open a cooler door, get exactly what they want, and be back to their seat very quickly. So I don't know if there's as much of a need for vendors as there used to be, but we're absolutely still looking at it and trying to figure out if that makes sense. And this is, a part of the labor pool when it comes to the concession side, is sometimes you have to decide, are you better off to have a beer vendor going up and down an aisle, or are you better off to open up one more checkout point at one of those grab and go locations? And so sometimes for us, it's kind of a, yes, you want everything, but at the end of the day, you have to make the decision that has the biggest benefit.
No, that certainly makes perfect sense. Let's break out that Springfield Cardinal crystal ball. If you looked 3 years from now, Dan, what would it look like?
3 years from now, I want to get to what I want to call the beer pier. And I want to build a destination bar in left field that looks like a deck. And it's like you're drinking on someone's back porch, you're drinking at the lake dock. And to me, I think that if we can get to that, I think that's going to be a really cool fan feature. Within 3 years, I want to have a brand new playground area to really make it a better experience for kids that need to run around in circles. And I don't feel bad saying that, because I've got 2 boys that like to run around in circles.
And
yeah, they're oddly similar to dad. So crazy how genetics works like that.
Sure.
But I think the beer pier, a concession, or the new kids playground. I also think our office building is going to be something that it's either need to build into our parking lot, or it's going to go up. And I think if it goes up, a part of the idea would be to make it connecting so that our stadium is 360 degrees and you can walk around it, because we're the only stadium in our league that you can't do that. So I think that 360 walkway. But I think the biggest thing that you'll see is that we're wanting to make this stadium activated a lot more. If you ask me, we want to add bathrooms to our indoor facility so we can rent it out to teams wanting to practice. We can rent it out to charities to do events. We want to have it with concerts. There's a lot of feasibility going on in minor league baseball about winter festivals. So, I mean, there's just so many things that, in 3 years from now, I hope people describe us as a lot more than just a baseball team.
Dan, you got about 20 seconds to tell folks how to get their tickets for this year.
SpringfieldCardinals.com, or follow us on our social media to see a lot of the fun stuff we do. And I think that's one of the joys of minor league baseball is that you can always buy a ticket to a game, but there's a lot more events that just make it a good time with your family or friends.
You're a real pro, my friend. I really appreciate you being here as my guest today. Excuse me, on Around the Ozark Spotlight. Also, thank my producers, Taylor Worley and Jay Stevens, and all of you for joining us today. If you happen to miss all or part of this conversation, you can always find ATO Spotlight at aroundtheozarks.com or on the ATO app found in either the Apple App Store or Android apps. And there you'll find today's program as well as all of this past year's shows as well. I'm Scott Meier. Remember, every day is a gift. It's the best present you can ever receive. Have a great day.